Welcome to the Hear K Tell podcast. This episode, we will focus on furthering the mental health awareness of retired WNBA and NBA players. You don't want to miss it. Welcome to the Hear K Tell podcast. I am your host. First of all, I'm always your host, Christina Alexander. My guest is an awesome human being. She's my cohort 5 sister at Nike WHQ. Leslie Johnson. Now, wait. Before we get into her illustrious resume, I want to make sure I do justice by mentioning just quite a few things on the achievements, the accolades, the successes, the wins of this young lady. She's a former Purdue Boilermaker and Western Kentucky Hilltopper. She's the first freshman in the Big Ten to be named the first team All Big Ten, leading them to their first ever Final Four in 1994. She was also a second team All Sun Belt Conference, also leading them to the Sweet 16. She's a WNBA veteran, Washington Mystics. We played for the same team, not at the same years. She definitely played overseas in Greece, Turkey, Israel, South Korea, Portugal, Spain. If I missed a country, let me know, Sistren. And she's the current founder of Hushed No More, which is dedicated to furthering the mental health and awareness of not just student athletes, but retired players specifically. I want to make sure I do the justice. Welcome, Leslie.
Wow, that was more than justice. That was like coming out the. Hey, I feel I'm so hyped off of that. Like I'm ready for it all. Just
Let's
throw
go.
it.
Listen,
Let's get it. I'm excited.
that's what's important
Thank
about
you for
this.
having me.
You are welcome. Thank you for being here. The Hear K Tell podcast is about transitions from sport to career. And boy, is your story worth sharing. And so let's start with the first question, because I typically start from the beginning and get to the now. I want to start from the now. So sport can take you to places that you have never been, connect you to people outside of your immediate circles. Share with us what sport is doing for you today.
Wow, sports have taken me to spaces and places. I sometimes I feel like, how did I get to be so worthy? How did I get to be so worthy to be in Portland, Oregon, as you said, and work at Nike headquarters, a part of a program that brought former WNBA players. I wouldn't be here without that title. It's taken me all around the world, as you mentioned, when I did play in Israel and into places that, speaking of Israel, imagine being a young adult, 21, 22 years old, and the flight attendant says, "Welcome to Jerusalem."
Mm.
Welcome to Nazareth, when you're on the highway driving in your vehicle. And so sports have put me into position in ways I can't even describe. And so when you talk about what it has done for me, after, I'm a part of the retired NBA Players Association, and that, being grouped in with former NBA players and Harlem Globetrotters and other former WNBA athletes who, some of our members are Magic Johnson, Michael
Right.
Jordan, Larry Bird, and any one of those conferences, we all join it together with the Lisa Leslies and those types. And so I've had that privilege. But we'll get into my organization, and
Right,
I'll
right.
tell you what
Let's
happened.
not do that just yet. Not yet, not yet.
Yeah,
Although
okay,
right,
I'll hold
hush
that.
no more
I'll
is
hold that.
important. Not yet. If anything, you have had success on the court at Purdue University in Western Kentucky, as I mentioned in your resume. Um, when you look back on your success, when you look back on your success in the landscape of women's basketball now, what are some of the attributes you possess as a player you think would separate you in today's game? And just so our viewers, our listeners know, they used to call you Baby Barkley, not because it was a compliment. And so I want to make sure we kind of try to parallel today's game versus when we played. And when I say when we played, we might be considered dinosaurs now, but it's okay.
Well, as you said, being nicknamed Baby Barkley, that certainly was a compliment. One, I've had my share. People do say that we favor each other, we resemble. I don't know, depending on who you are, you may see it and you may not. But certainly when I played basketball, you saw the resemblance. just being undersized if in height only, right? And so they listed me at 6'2", which was probably the greatest lie ever told. And that was just one of the things they did back then to help you out, to get the
Right.
scouts to stay on your side. But my truth is, I'm about 5'10", 11ish, and I play ball at about 220 to 235. Big girl, wide body, strong, wide load, if you will. And so I use my size to get what I wanted on the floor. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you ask that question, it's kind of a loaded question about like how do I compare that to today? I do think that we have wonderful centers and post players that are doing their thing. But when I played, I definitely feel like it was much more a battle of the posts, a battle of
Mm.
strength. And, it was nothing for me to take, one or two players with me to the basket. And I look forward to it. I couldn't wait for the contact. And so sometimes I see them out there crying and looking for a foul. I said, what is that? That's not something I ever did. And so I definitely think that is a very big difference.
Okay, I would agree with you. For some of us who have not seen you play, and I had the privilege of watching you play, you're absolutely right. You carry quite a few people and one ref. Let me get to this free throw line and make these two easy buckets. Now, when we talk, so you talked a little bit about those attributes on the court. Talk about off the court. What was your mindset as a player? Because for someone who's undersized, knowing what you were up against, game in and game out. Because I mean, I'm height challenged, so I'm a guard. I'm small. I always, we always have to find ways to be great. But you dominated in a space where height was a critical component. Off the court, that mental aspect. What separated you?
So I want to make sure you and your viewers get a real clear view of this
Give
situation,
us a
right on
clear
the court.
view.
So let me narrate this. So I'm 5'10", 11, 6 feet ish. I'm 225, 230. And everybody I play against, they're 6'4", they're 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". And let me tell you, I wish my father was on the show because he would testify that in all my years playing, I don't think my shot was blocked, but maybe 2 times from high school to the pros. Nobody could block my shot, even though they were much taller than me. But what I did was I used my body. I knew how to shield. I had post moves that I was told all the time that I had some unbelievable footwork. So I
Mhm.
would dance with my competition in the block. I would spin, I would fade, I would throw hooks. And so that mindset that I always understood it, that if any point in time in these games that I play, if I get one step wrong, they're gonna block my shot. If I'm not really meticulous in understanding what I'm doing on every single play, they could easily strip the ball from me. So with
Mhm.
that said, I came into every game, one, always focused on what I had to do. And they would always tell me, are you going to outplay them? But mentally, I came into every game saying, I don't come to play, I come to slay. I'm here to destroy my competition. If I outplay you, that's an L for me. My goal was to dominate. And so to this day, that is my mentality. When I do
Mhm.
something, I want to do it to my best. I don't want to be good. I don't want to be seen as doing something superb. I want to be considered a great. And so that was the difference in my mindset, in high school when I shot 78% from the field for the whole season on the 30-point average. Basically, 8 out of 10 times you give me the ball, I'm going to score. And it was because I wanted to be efficient. And so now here I am, an adult, and I'm doing so many other things, but the mentality is still the same. I want to be laser focused. I want to
Right.
be great, and I want to be efficient. I want to do it, and I want to do it right, but I want to do it well. And
Mm.
so in everything I do, I strive for the same thing. I have to mention this other piece. So when
Okay.
I play
Ooh,
always, and you know this, Christina, it's a lot of ups and downs. We have a lot of downs, losses, and these things. But I always been the type that I could cry. It was possible because I'm sensitive in the heart, right?
right,
But
right.
I
That's
always had a motto: I ain't gonna cry long. I'm gonna move it. I'm gonna keep moving forward. And so to this day, even when I get kicked down, I'm not gonna stay there. And that's my mentality. And I got that from sports. That I can be down, I can go through struggle, I can go through turmoil. I may not understand something today, but guess what? I'm not going to stay here. Check on me next year. Ask me
ooh.
2 years from now. And I'll let you know how that went. I guarantee you there was an improvement and I kept moving forward.
Well, that was the nugget drop, folks. She gave you a few items to put in your bag because I think it's important, not just on the court, but off the court. And that mindset is something I want to kind of pivot to. What are some of the biggest lessons you learned as a player you stress to student athletes or just to your audiences today that are critical to transitioning from high school to college? That's one. College to the pros, that's two. And then beyond career. I want to really want to dabble a little bit deeper into that perspective.
Well, when you're going from high school to college, I think is what's very important is that I listen. And they need to listen because they don't know everything. And where they're trying to go, somebody else has already been there. So why are so many young people trying to recreate and reinvent the wheel? And so I tell young student athletes, listen, pay attention. You have to be able to accept constructive criticism. I'm not telling you to accept negativity. I said constructive criticism when you have parents, when you have coaches and teachers who are telling you how to go. Listen to them. They love you. They're not here to do anything but make you better. So you gotta pay attention to what they have to say. So that's that phase. And then
Okay.
when you get to college,
Yeah.
then the next phase, to me, it's more of a skill set, right? Like you've got to really put in the work. This is the time to now you've learned quite a few things in high school, but now you got to get good, really good at what you know. And so you got to practice. You got to get in the gym. You got to ask for help. You got to get more instruction because now you got to find a way to separate yourself from so many other college players that are out there. Okay.
Mhm.
And then if you lucky enough, blessed enough to be in
Right.
the field, the less than the 1%. I really get offended when people say the 1%. Oh no, it's the less than the 1% that make it to the league. If you get to that top tier, my advice from there is watch what the men do. Because the men have had over 100 years of the NBA, right? And
Mhm.
so a lot of those guys like Jordan, what did they do? They pulled Dr. J aside and they said, Michael Jordan said, Dr. J, can you give me something that I'm missing? You're the
Mhm.
greatest of my time. What am I missing? And Dr. J looked to Wilt Chamberlain. And those guys, they understood that even though you're great, the ones that have come before you, they have an understanding that only very few possess. So I,
Mhm.
I really encourage those who are in the pros to take advantage of players like Cheryl Sluice, players like you, Christina, who got a word, players like my good friend Kim Hampton,
Right.
players who have been in the game and in the business. Listen to them because one thing they do not understand that we know all too well, it's not going to last forever.
No. No. And
You got to be ready and prepared for however it ends because it will.
listen, you just kind of transition right into my next question, which was about as athletes, and like you said, we've all gone through the high school, we've all gone through college, the pros, whether it be in the NBA, WNBA, even overseas, because we didn't even talk about the overseas parts, which I think is important as well. And then we talk about when that career finally comes to an end, what happens next? So When your career finally comes to an end in an athlete's journey, the ending can be devastating. So share with us, what was that transition like for you? And this is where I really want to start to get into Hush No More.
Okay, let's get into crux.
Okay.
So, uh, you know what? There's a thing of how it ended for me, and
Yes.
how I know for a fact it ended for my sisters and my brothers in basketball. Like we all, who it's like a fraternity sorority. We're all still brothers and sisters, right? In sports, and so
Right.
we share each other's stories. What was it like for you? What was it like for you? Well, for me, although we all got a story to tell, I feel like I got a story for the ages. Because when I got done playing basketball, I always struggled with weight gain. I had to
Mhm.
fight hard. I feel like color purple. All my life I had to fight. I had to fight, Christina. I had to fight. I had to fight to stay 225. I had to do extra work to get down to 220. And so I knew when I got done playing, it was going to be the fight for my life. And it
Okay.
truly was. So when I got done playing, literally within the first year, I gained 80 pounds in the first year. And within 2 years, my playing weight went from 220, 225, 230 to I found myself in a situation that I weighed 424 pounds, a 200-pound weight gain after sports.
Wow.
A lot of that came from this horrific word called depression,
Hmm.
because I was not mentally ready to handle just being able to honestly just look in the mirror. I didn't know who I
Hmm.
was because I'm the ball player. And
Right.
everywhere you
Right.
go, you the player, you the one that played ball. And so this is how it wasn't just what we played, but it was how I identified. It was who I was an athlete. And so I really had a hard time finding out what is next for me. And so it led to a lot of drinking because drinking made me feel good temporarily, and it can make me not think about the things I was going through. And I felt like it was helping me cope. But then it was a journey. And in this journey, I realized on the other end that it was part of my delusion in the
Mm.
alcohol, right? And I was delusional, and it kept me so I didn't have to feel, and I didn't have to change, and I didn't have to cope with this new truth for me, which is over.
It's over.
Find something else to do. Become somebody else. And so alcohol was my crutch. And
Okay.
so I became a raging alcoholic. It's something that I did in secret for many years, never talked on, never shared. It was just something that was a part of me, and those closest to me knew all too well that it was a problem.
Hmm.
But it's been 12 years. There's a whole story of how my sister got sick, and I realized, man, she was gonna need me till her dying day, and she did. And so, in the moment that I heard she was terminally ill, that was my pivotal moment. And I said, I'll never drink again, because for the first time, I was having so much self pity. But I said, it's not about me. I got
Mm.
to be there for her. I got to be there for my niece, and I need to be sober. I need to be clean if she ever needs me. And so began this journey of turning my life around. And so that was 12 years ago. I've been
Okay.
sober for over 12 years. And in the
Congrats.
midst of all of that, I knew I wasn't alone. And I knew
Congratulations.
that I wasn't the only one who had a hard time transitioning. And so I decided, okay, I've got to turn this pain into my purpose. And so there came Hush No More. It was birth from my struggles, but it was also birth from me just having the courage to just get over my feelings, to get over myself, and see what else I could do to lift somebody else out from that turmoil of transitioning after sports.
Whew, what a powerful story. And I want to make sure I congratulate you for being 12 years sober. That is not an easy feat. And any time that you do that for self is absolutely important, not only for you, but your family as well. So congratulate,
Thank you.
sis. I know that that wasn't easy. You said a lot. You said a
All
lot. And
right.
I want to make sure our viewers understand. So what two steps would you share? Because when your career comes to an end, when we know when it's nearing the end, it's just we kind of avoid it, like you said. We don't. We're unable to really address it. What two steps would you share with our viewers to execute when they realize their career is over or nearing the end? Is there something that they can do?
Well, I think it's very important to have a vulnerable moment real quick and just say how most of us who play professional basketball, because a lot of the times their audience, people watching, they've got all these wonderful thoughts of how the professional sports world works. And it's our job to educate them that it's
Hmm.
not as peachy as it seems. So I
Hmm.
learned I was cut, waived, let go in the USA Today.
Hmm.
Nobody bothered to call me and tell me
Wait,
I
wait,
was off
wait,
the
wait, wait.
team.
I gotta stop you right there. Remember the USA Today? When you made it to the USA Today, you knew you arrived. I'm sorry, I just had to date myself, but the USA Today, I used to love that was
Well, we didn't have it. I mean, it wasn't
right.
like
There's no
turned
social
into
media.
social media. So in the 90s, and USA Today was it. And USA Today was very good to me. They would have ranked one who ranked me number one center in the country out of high school. They ranked me first team All American in college. And so it was also USA Today that put in the description Leslie Johnson, Wade. And people called, girl, you got Wade. And so it, we have to talk about how your world just kind of collapses in a minute when we realize you're off the team, you're
Hmm.
cut. And for a lot of us former pro athletes who was ranked number one in the nation out of high school with the center position, I was a two-time All-American in college, and never been cut a day of my life
Mm-mm.
until that day. I was cut. And so you don't know how to handle rejection. You've never been in a position of where they don't want you anymore. And so once you have to grasp that, that's the mental piece because it's embarrassing. It's traumatic. And
Hmm.
I don't mind just throwing that word. It is PTSD if I ever
It is.
saw it
It
from
is.
us when you realize they don't want you no more. And
Mhm.
so you go through that pain. And so I believe, help me if I'm wrong, I might have got lost in translation. So once you had to accept this new
Right, the
found
awareness,
reality,
right. Once you accept the awareness of what has just taken place, what's another step that you would, impart on some folks going through this?
so the next step is I would say that was the way my journey was. But my advice is that it should have never came to that. I
Mm,
should have already had the resume filled. I should have already, for some of you who don't understand the importance of graduating, hopefully you've already graduated and you've got things lined up. But I've also should have had things in place, like had already spoken to my university. What can I do? I should have already been talking to companies and corporations in my home city. Will I be able to work for you when this is over? But a transition plan should have been in place. But we think it's not going to stop.
right,
I
it's
have
never
two
gonna end.
more years. I have 3 more years. And so the goal is to have preparation. But what I would also say when we transitioning out, the best advice that I could give, and I have to say this because it's who I am. It's a part of me. It's stuck with me for a long time. And it's that thing called the old rugged cross. It's stuck with me. And if I did not have, again, I have to advocate for myself. I can just tell you for me. I was raised with that. I had to go. I went to church growing up, and all those things. And sometimes we think it's our parents, just pushing this type of stuff on us. But when you realize you're somewhere in Yugoslavia, somewhere in
Mhm.
Israel, your mother not there, your father not there, your coach not around, and then it's over and you got to come back and it's scary. You don't know what's going to happen next. My word of advice is, boy, I really hope that you open up that good book of instructions because it still never failed me. It didn't fail me then. It didn't fail me now. And so that's where I had to find strength from some of those words that was just like, you're still more than a conqueror. You can still do all things through Christ who strengthens you. And so I had to cling to these things because, again, it's very easy to start feeling hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me, that was my faith. Just saying, you know what, no matter what it looked like, no matter how hard it is, no matter if I could see my way out, Lord, I'm going to trust you for it. And so that is what really was the crux for me and my saving grace. And if you're not a believer, I would say something inspirational. You better start, you're looking at the story of Wilma Rudolph, you better start reading about all of these people that are out there who
Mm-hmm.
found a way and who went through things that was so much harder than the things that we face and use that as inspiration.
I
But
love
to
that.
me, you got to latch on to words of inspiration through books, through documentaries, and find out how did others find a way through, and it'll inspire you to keep it going as well.
Oof, I love that. One is awareness, which I think is key. You nailed that one. Two is to have a transition plan, which is, I think, again, we both talk about that transition. Our platforms that we utilize today, not only just the Hear K Tell podcast or Hush No More, but we really talk about what is your exit strategy, having that in place 2 steps before you actually get there. And then three, sister, the good word, we're believers. We don't even have to worry about that. This is the Hear K Tell podcast. We're believers. We ain't gotta go there with that. I'm with you on that one. Now,
Um,
I wanted you to tell our viewers what is Hush No More. I want you to kind of lay out exactly what that is if they have not already clicked your website, and because I actually viewed that today to take a good look at what is Hush No More. And I love what you've laid out in simple terms. You have a lot of photographs, you have a lot of information that folks can take away. But share with us, what is Hush No More?
Well, the Hush No More website definitely needs to be updated because I've had such a busy year,
Okay.
so much going on that it would create an even bigger picture of all the things that are packed inside of my company and what it's all about. I really would like to encourage, for the social media platforms as well. There's more current things that are there, but as you can see in the backdrop, I've got Touch No More podcasts that I do, and basically what that is, I just bring awareness, and I make sure that the world can see that it's not just a Leslie Johnson story. So many people have a story to tell, and mine was with alcoholism and obesity and some other things, but other athletes, former Major League Baseball players that I've had on the show, NFL, NBA, Harlem Globetrotters, ABA. I had USA track and field wrestlers on the show. And you begin to see a pattern that everybody's pretty much saying the same thing. We weren't ready. So if you
Mhm.
hear enough of that, maybe it'll inspire you to get ready for your journey better than any of us did. And so we had the podcast and bringing awareness. I have a book that is supposed to come out in the next few weeks. And
Tell us the name
I'm
of it.
almost at the
The
finish
promo.
line. Of course,
Right.
the name of the book will be Hush No More.
Okay.
I'm excited about it because what it's going to do is going to give you my journey, but it's also a self-study workbook. And
Okay.
so that's important to me. And I feel like that's the angle that is different from many other books that are out there that are just something to read. No, with my book, I want to get you active. I want you to do the work and self-reflect from what I've gone through and bounce it off of what you're going through. And I think it's so important, Christina, because at the end of the day, there's still this great taboo that people, they don't want to go to a therapist. They don't want to go get the
Mhm.
help. They don't want to raise their hand and say, yeah, I went through some depression. But if they'll just grab this book that I'm getting ready to release, they can do the work at home. And if
Mhm.
they can identify enough issues, maybe they'll say, man, it's me. I need to go get that help. I've been keeping it all to myself, but after, you know, doing the work, I'm realizing I too got a problem and I need I need help. And so that's the purpose of the book. And of course, you got NAMI and all the other spaces that are going to be in the book that
Okay.
will tell you how you can go get professional help. And so we have the book, and then there's just all these different tiers. I recently just had a Hush No More shooting for mental wellness
Talk
basketball camp
about it.
in
Come on,
Chicago.
sis. Talk about it. This was a big deal. I want to
There's so
continue to
many
hear more.
layers. There's so
Yes.
many layers because I'm a dreamer. We're both dreamers. You can't make it to the league without being a dreamer. And so I
Yes.
have
Yes.
all these ideas in my head, things that I want to be able to do and contribute to this point. But the shooting for mental wellness, I really feel like was a huge success in Chicago. I
Hmm.
teamed up with former NBA player Craig Hodges, who won 2 titles with Michael
Okay.
Jordan for the Chicago Bulls. And we teamed up. Craig's got a story of his own, but he's also an expert 3-point shooter, winning 3-point shooting contests. And so I really let him take control of the shooting piece. But then we did something very special. We had breakout sessions that went into mental wellness. And so they heard my testimony, they heard Craig's testimony, but we also had professional people that were in place that spoke to the kids. And so we combined it. Where a lot of times our camps, we just like keep your elbow in, make sure you're and no, I'm like, no, it's a new day and I want to be able to bring it. We
Mm,
need to be able, because you can be a great player, but if your mind, as we say, ain't right,
mm-mm.
if your mind ain't right,
You're
how
going to
can the
struggle.
game follow? And
Exactly.
so we're working on mind and body when we're doing those shooting for mental wellness camps. Again, I could go on and on and on, but a lot of things are still developing. Of course, I
Okay.
speak. I've spoken in Dubai. I've spoken all over the country in different places, and I'm just going to continue to speak. I do feel like it's my purpose. I think that I have to continue to share um, what I went through, but more
Mhm.
importantly, how I came out. How I came
Ooh,
out is very important. That
okay.
they don't just get, oh, you went through something. No, 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 that's not the end. I fell down, but I love the gospel song that say we fell down, but we get up. We fall down, but we get up. So I
Yes.
got up because, as he said, the saint is just a sinner who stayed there, but they didn't stay there.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
stay there. So that's my testimony. I
Okay.
get out and I put it out there. It don't matter what you've been through. It don't matter if you're hurting, if you're struggling, if you're going through it. What matters is that you recognize that there's an issue, that
Hmm.
awareness we've been talking about. And once you recognize that there's an issue, then at that point, be a king, be a queen, be a leader. Show
Hmm.
people that you went through all of this, but yet you still got the victory. And so we
Absolutely.
all have a testimony, and it's powerful. People will respect you more when you are able to be vulnerable and say what you've gone through, and then they hear how you came out.
Ooh. Whew. I got a snap for that, sis. All the way. Now, in listening to you continue to share your story, and I've heard it, we see each other every single day. But I think it's important for our viewers to understand, what would you say is your biggest accomplishment with Hush No More thus far? Because you're talking about mental wellness, mental health, mental preparation. You're talking about mental success because, like you said, getting out on the other side. What would you say is the biggest accomplishment thus far?
For me, I would definitely say, like this summer, the National Basketball Retired Players Association,
Hmm.
they had me speak to its members. Again,
Okay.
the members are former NBA, all former WNBA, ABA, Harlem Globetrotters, and to see some of the greatest to ever do it, sit in that room, and you could hear a pin drop when
Mhm.
I was sharing my story and explaining the importance of mental wellness, the importance of accepting the help from the association on mental wellness. And I literally sat in that room and I watched a grown man or two cry,
Mm,
listening to me. And that type of feedback for me, I value way more than being able to tell you about a speaking engagement I got that they paid me this or that. I value that so much more than, being featured here or there. For me, it was that moment when I'm seeing all these players who are so accomplished, who were so successful at their sport, went way further than I ever could, just glued by what I had to say. And then to add on to that, when we talk about that surreal moment, to have so many come up to me and say what it meant to them. But to
Mm,
share one little quick piece of feedback, to have one of those gentlemen who played in the NBA, was a great, really great player in the NBA. He walked up to me and he says, Leslie, I want to talk to you. He's like, I was in the meeting when you was on the forum and you was speaking on mental wellness, but I got to tell you, you got about halfway in and I had to leave. And I said, oh, really? I said, it's okay as long as you heard something. Hopefully it impacted you. He said, and he just kind of pulled me. He said, I need you to know I left because I couldn't handle it. You
mm,
triggered pain in me
mm,
that I didn't know still bothered me, that still existed. And when I began to tear up, I had to leave because I wasn't ready for my basketball brothers and sisters to see me cry like that. But I need you to know that you keep up this good fight because
mhm.
people like me, you're impacting. And this was a person that was, I'm impacting you. Look at
Right,
who you are and how
right,
you've impacted me in the game, in the world. And
right.
so for me, that's a loaded answer, but there's no greater feeling for me when I get the feedback from some of the best to ever do it that says, keep it up. Keep fighting the good fight. We got your back.
Hush no more. I think that it speaks for itself. Hush no more.
Yeah.
Our viewers, our listeners will be able to, again, reach out to you. We'll share all of their information. But Leslie, your story, sis, like I said, we've actually never played against each other, but we've in circles, we've got this, same friends, same network. I
Yeah.
just want to say thank you. I am blessed. I am privileged to have you as my sister cohort, to have you as a friend now here at WHQ. I just want to say exactly what he said and reemphasize. Keep going. I love what you're doing with mental health, mental wellness. It is important not only for us as retired players, but folks that look like us in our communities. So thank you for joining me here on the Hear K Tell podcast.
Christina, please give me 2 seconds to tell you thank you. Thank you for having me on. I value our friendship, but I value the person that I see that you are every day. You're always pouring in to people. You're always that one person. How can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I use me? I'm here for you. And where would this world be without people like you who are always giving of yourself and so selfless? And so you are part of what we need to make an impact. And I'm just grateful for your friendship and grateful that you brought me on today.
Absolutely. Sis, I appreciate you. Thank you.
You got it.
We appreciate you joining us on the Hear K Tell podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe if you're not already a part of the family, like, and definitely share. We'll see you next episode.